got a strange going on out here. Something just killed my dog.
Something killed your dog?
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining the Cryptid Podcast tonight. As always, I'm your host, Daniel Hamilton. And tonight, you guys, I have a really, really special guest, an amazing guest. So my guest tonight is a highly successful television documentary producer and show creator, widely respected in the industry as a cutting-edge technologist, camera system inventor, and wildlife researcher. His groundbreaking work has documented never-before-seen behaviors in wildlife, including black bears, beavers, fish, and other invertebrates. His team made history by capturing the first ever footage of a free-swimming giant squid in its natural environment for a 2-hour television special. With an impressive career spanning over 270 television series, documentaries, films, features, and commercials, he has worn multiple hats as a creator, an inventor, producer, director, editor, writer, and consultant. His works have been featured in major news outlets, national newspapers, and magazines. He's appeared as a guest on CNN, Fox, ABC, NBC, CBS, OLN, and Animal Planet. His innovative research on wildlife has also earned him multiple appearances on the History Channel. This guest has been nominated for 3 Emmy Awards, and in 2006, he won the Silver Telly Award for House of Babies on Discovery Health Channel. Beyond the world of wildlife and television, his expertise extends into the automotive industry, where in 2019, he won the SEMA Best New Automotive Exterior Product of the Year for inventing soft caps, the only flexible, high-temperature bolt and cap screw cover. When asked what he is most proud of in his career, our guest humbly responded, "My published science papers on bears, my work with giant squid, my television career, and the many inventions I've created, including the world's first wildlife webcam." Everybody, it is my absolute honor and privilege to introduce my guest and my friend, the one and only Mr. MonsterQuest himself, Doug Hajicek. Everybody, let's welcome Doug to the show.
Hey, Daniel.
Doug, how's it going, buddy?
Good. How long has it been since we've seen each other?
Almost 3 weeks.
Is it really? It seems
Yeah.
like yesterday. Days.
Yeah.
We were whining and dining.
We were. And you know what was really funny is the day after, my wife goes, "So have you come down off of your high yet?" And I go, "Nope, I'm still riding super high right now." And she just started laughing. And I told her about the shrimp and the gigantic onion rings and, and then I looked at, I told her, I said, "Yeah, I'm looking around the table and, his wife is eating this really nice cut of steak and his co-host from his show and his brother are eating these really nice sized pork chops and his other friend has a plate of something. I don't know what it is." And I ordered a rotisserie chicken melt and I look over at Doug's plate and he's eating a cheeseburger. And I said, "It's great,
That's a good observation there, Daniel.
Oh, well, I mean, and I can't help it, man. I like to sit and watch and I like being around people. So
yeah, anyhow, that's pretty good. You're pretty observant. I was eating my little lowly cheeseburger. Yep.
Hey, that's it looked pretty good. It looked better than what I was eating.
Yeah, it was good.
Right on.
So we're like neighbors. We're about 15, 20 miles apart.
Yeah, about that.
Probably by the crow flies about 8.
Yeah, probably. So tonight I want to kind of talk about a couple of things that you and I discussed about a certain area that's between us where there have been some sightings.
Yeah, that area needs a name.
Yeah, we should name it.
It's like, I don't know. I'll think about it. Yeah, we need to name that little area because there's been so much activity there, and it's definitely on the edge of the suburbs.
Oh, absolutely. But outside of that, you told me something about this area. We'll call it Area H. We'll call it Area H because your last name's Hajicek, my last name's Hamilton.
There you go.
It's called
All
Area.
right.
And you said, you'd mentioned that this place is completely off limits.
It is, a lot of it is. Some of it isn't, but that whole area has one thing in common.
Mhm.
Minnesota is full of glacier lakes, right, where they were dug out. They're new lakes. They're brand new. They're new.
Yeah.
Last 100,000 years or whenever the ice age was. Okay, these lakes that surround this area H that you mentioned are old, ancient lakes, and they're entrophicated, meaning they're filled in. They're old, they're shallow. At one point, they were probably deep,
Mhm.
They were also an area where a lot of really old tribes lived, and they find a lot of artifacts, like really old, ancient ones. But these lakes all are on the edge of where they decided to build the freeway.
Right.
35W. And that's what makes it so weird, because you can hear the freeway, in some areas,
Mhm.
but yet people are seeing Bigfoots in there. And,
What another fascinating thing is you told me about this is that didn't you say some botanists from the University of Minnesota went there?
Yeah.
And what did they discover?
Well, okay, so I was investigating, like, who, especially Rondow, who owns this lake, because it's completely, this is one of them that's barbed wired off completely. And yet there's an island, you can see an island out there, and it's very swampy and whatnot, but there's been a lot of sightings there, including a guy that works for me saw one in there in broad daylight, crossed right in front of his car. And that creature was filmed later on, and I can point your audience to that, which is really interesting. Okay. What the hell?
we were talking about the
place.
botanists, what they found in that area.
So I started investigating. We were really digging deep into, like, who owned who owned this? Somebody's got to be responsible for all this barbed wire. And found out it was a hunting club that owned it for like 150 years. And because they've owned it for so long, it's been in their name, they own the riparian rights. They own under the water. And so no one's allowed to go in there. Guy claimed they weren't even allowed to go in there. Their members weren't allowed to go in there. Nobody. I just found it suspicious. Why own it? Why pay taxes on it if you can't go in there? And I do want to note, one of the roads that goes around the lake is called Furman Road.
Yeah.
Which is coincidental. I don't know. But apparently there were some university students, botanists, that wanted to get in there really bad, and they bugged them for a long time. And they let them go in there, but they weren't allowed. They said, you can go in there with your canoes, but you can't get out of your canoes. Okay. I mean, that's really a virgin place, right?
Yeah.
And apparently they found a number of plants that were extinct everywhere else in Minnesota. And I went, whoa, that's pretty cool.
That's a big deal.
It is. Maybe it's one of those plants that those Bigfoots are after.
Yeah, maybe.
We don't know. It just adds more mystery to the whole area. And I don't know what to think about it. And when my buddy had a sighting there, I thought, God, what a lucky duck, man. Mm-hmm. He was driving back there because I brought some property that connects to one of those lakes, just about connects. Mm-hmm. Like there's a lot separating it. But I've heard wood knocks. I've heard we've had whistling exchanges back there. Where it's 2-3 in the morning, you're whistling, they're whistling back. You whistle, they mimic you. Whatever little whistle you do, they mimic it. Really interesting. But And so I told my buddy, I said, you should, check out back there. I gave him the roads to punch in there and drive around slow, and he did. And it was like days later after he had done that, he goes, by the way, did deer walk upright? I went, what are you talking about?
No way.
What do you mean do deer walk upright? And he goes, well, I had an upright creature that was standing on its, 2 legs that crossed in front of my truck as I went around this little corner slow, and then there was a hill, so he comes around the corner and then goes down. And he said right there was a creature standing right at the edge of the road, and it walked in front of him and then stepped over a barbed wire fence, and disappeared into the woods. And he was convinced it was a deer. I said, Joe, did it have broad shoulders or narrow shoulders? He goes, walks into a cafe and says, why did my phone do that?
I have no idea.
That was Alexa.
There you
Told
go.
me a joke about a skeleton walked into a cafe. That was one of the weirder things that's ever happened to me.
Well, and we caught it here.
I'm gonna say, anyhow, I didn't say anything. I don't know that triggered that, but okay. So I said to him, well, did it have broad shoulders? Yeah, it had really big shoulders. And I said, when it stepped over the barbed wire fence, how did it step? It said it was just like glided right over the top of it. Like it was just not even there. And that barbed wire fence, I've measured, it's over 5 feet tall. I mean, you or me are not stepping over that barbed wire fence.
Nope.
It's not happening. A man, but I kept asking him questions. And I said, dude, you saw Bigfoot. And he goes, oh, it was a Bigfoot. He thought about it. And he's like, yeah, it had to be. What else could it have been? I said, well, I asked him what color it was. He said it was a color of that pair of shoes you have in your shoe rack in your garage. It's like an auburn colored, like an orangutan color. And I found that interesting because there hasn't been a lot of reports of that color reported in Minnesota. All right. So then the guy's over. I mean, we're best buds and we work together. And so he came over to do some homework we had to get done. I don't know, it was taxes, inventory. I don't know, something we had to do. And he comes over and we get the news on, local news. And all of a sudden there's a thing. Oh, a couple of films of Bigfoot, at, Big Marine Lake or Stillwater or whatever. And I went, oh, okay. Well, obviously we're both glued to the TV, and we look at it, and the creature is auburn. So I look at a map and I look where it was filmed, and I'm guessing it wasn't filmed where they said. I said, I bet you it was filmed right here due east from that lake, from your sighting. And I've later confirmed that. It was filmed exactly due east, about maybe only 8 miles of there. And it's actually, and so I ran ads, Daniel, to try to find the people that filmed it, because a couple had dropped it off at the news station and didn't want anything to do with it. They're like, we don't want our names used. Here it is. You can have it. You can own it. You can do whatever you want, which is odd for Bigfoot footage. Usually people want to cash in on it, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's fake or real or whatever. No, they dropped it off, and that was the end of it. And of course, I tried to get the original tape back, and I couldn't. Because apparently they, and I've had problems with this too, because I used to work in the newsroom at Care 11 and at KSTP, and they recycle all the tapes they get. They just get recycled. Yeah. And so, they aired the story. We had my recorder going, and then I ran ads trying to find this couple, because I know it was the same creature Joe had seen because of the reddish hair, the way he described it. And the fact, I mean, what are the chances? 8 miles due east to where his sighting was, right towards the St. Croix River, as if it's punching, in that corridor.
Yeah.
That we both know so well, the St. Croix River Valley, which is protected, beautiful. Yep. It's got hills, it's got water, and it's got forest.
This is crazy. So you're telling me within a 25-mile radius from my house,
yes,
there's all this activity going
Oh
on.
God, yes. Yeah, you don't need to go far, Daniel, especially you. If you want to do activity, I can show you. I can show you spots that I bet you are less than a mile from your house.
Then we need to get together this weekend. No, I'm just kidding.
We, well, it's great because I've done a lot of research there. But then I was so jealous of Joe for years and years and years that, he had that sighting daytime, broad 2 PM. And I thought, God, that was just like, what a great coincidence. What, blah, blah, blah. And then me and Yvette had driven to White Bear, to your area, your town. And we were heading back. And there happened to be a water ski show. And I think it was George Watch. They put him on there.
Yep,
There's a water ski show they put there around somewhere in Centerville.
Yep, and it's on the left-hand side of that road.
Yeah, if you're heading towards my house, it's on the left-hand side.
Yep.
Okay, so we drove by to go to where we were going to downtown White Bear, and there were a whole bunch of kids, little kids, big kids, lots of kids on the shore. No problem. We drive by real slow. I'm trying to catch a glimpse of the water ski show. And it's a very undeveloped lake also. It connects to the Rice Creek chain of lakes and more forest reserve and so on. So we're coming back and it's about dusk, the sun is setting. And we're driving and we get closer to Rondow Lake. And all of a sudden we see a Bigfoot, which we knew right away this was a Bigfoot because it's plowing through the trees. Daniel, it's knocking them down as it's walking. Trees are, little saplings, alders. And it's kind of in the swamp. Well, if that's a human, first off, why are you going to pick that route? You're going to walk along the road, right?
Yeah.
You're not walking down in the kind of ditch area. And then started to veer off towards that wild area at Rondow. But here's what was unique about it. One, when this thing happened, we were stunned. I cannot describe how regretful I am and how stunned I was because your brain still is doing like the flip book.
Yep.
What am I looking at? And then by the time you realize for sure what you had just seen, how cool it was, you're past the spot and it's gone. And since it was walking in this slushy water, we could have gone back and, done all sorts of, but what would that have proved? I know what I saw. She knows what she saw.
Yeah.
But what was so cool about it, and I can't get it out of my head, it was beautiful, huge creature, broad shoulders. We're seeing it from the back. But the hair was this kind of very glossy black, but it had all of these spots of gray in it. Almost like a starling bird.
Yeah.
Like feathers, more like feathers, like the coloration of feathers. But it was beautiful. I mean, you can see it was hair, but it was absolutely gorgeous. And it just, it's gone. And then we're like, what in the hell? How did we get that lucky?
I'm going to tell you right now, when it gets warmer, I'm going to park my truck and I'm going to walk up and down that road.
Oh, I can give you some really good specific things and show you the exact places. So what my theory was, just a theory of why we saw that creature there and why it was walking along the road, it hurt all those children.
Yeah.
And, because the kids are loud, when they get excited, they're loud. I think it snuck around behind there and was watching those kids like they often are reported doing, just like the Memorial Day footage, same kind of situation. Can't resist. Now, I don't know why they enjoy watching children, but boy, I've got a lot of stories like that. And it looked to me like it was just trying to sneak back, but instead of taking the long back way around the northern side of the lake, it was just taking a quick shortcut into the southern end of that area.
Yeah.
So it just made sense geographically when you look at a map, but it just didn't give a damn if people saw it. I would imagine, I'm going to guess 20, 30 people saw that creature.
No way.
And none of them reported. And that's just stink.
It does.
Maybe somebody will listen to this and hear it go, yeah, we saw that thing too.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
but there had to have been, because there were, there's cars on that road.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'm a bad researcher. I should have stopped. I should have pulled over, taken my shoes off, started looking for dents in the. I didn't need that. This was so clear, so close to my car. We didn't need to verify what it was.
How
and
tall?
I already knew they were living in there. Oh, it's huge.
You think
Huge.
what, 8, 9 feet?
A lot bigger than I am. At least 7.5. But it was, instead of being like really, really broad shouldered,
Mhm.
the whole thing was a little more just, I mean, it was muscular, but it wasn't like really like chubby, or it just seemed like it was a younger one.
Yeah.
Or an older one that it was maybe losing weight from being old. I don't know.
Yeah.
It just seemed very almost like a basket. I mean, you hear those reports like a basketball player.
Yeah.
I mean, in shape, but yet not like overly, like not giant biceps.
But how long was your sighting with him?
Well, you can count, 1, 2, we're watching it, 3, we're watching it, 4, we're watching it, 5, we're watching it, now we're passing it.
So you're looking at 5 to 7 seconds.
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah.
And people think, well, it's only 7 seconds. But when you go 1,000, 2, 1,000, that's a long time.
Yeah. It is so cool when you have a witness with you, when you both see it. I didn't have to point it out to her. She didn't have to point it out to me.
No.
Because we're always rubbernecking that area when we go through there, because we know how many sightings there's been over there. So we're always looking, hoping to see one, maybe in the water far away.
Just a ballpark. How many sightings do you think are over there? Just a ballpark.
In real life or in reported ones?
Reported ones. Because in real life,
reported, I think reported, or at least like talked about on podcasts, or unofficial reports where they've like contacted, like maybe the Minnesota Bigfoot research team or somebody like that. Mm-hmm. That whole area, oh my God, lots. 30 to 40.
That's
but how
crazy.
Many have been reported? How many real sightings have there been? Oh, I'm sure in the thousands.
Yeah.
Over the decades, because I know damn well, most people they don't say anything.
Yeah. That's like a Midwestern thing, though. When you think about it, it's, and especially, like my wife's family is like Norwegian, like Swedish,
Mm-hmm.
That whole area.
Very conservative. Keep your mouth shut.
Yep. When we go to church, no one wants to sit up in the front. We all sit in the back. We're all very quiet Lutherans. We don't sing boisterous. We just kind of,
yeah.
I completely understand that.
It's just most Minnesotans are kind of like that. And there's a lot of German heritage, a lot of Minnesota is really immigrant strong. And people just don't say anything.
Yeah. I get it.
Because, it's so easy to talk yourself out of something. It really is. I mean, me and Yvette could have talked ourselves out. If it would have just been me, she wouldn't, she probably wouldn't even believe me.
Yeah.
Isn't that weird? As many things as we've seen together, there's always that doubt when you're not in the car, you're not seeing the creature. It's just a natural instinct to be skeptical.
Now, when you pop on the live show after you have your dinner and whatever you need to do between the shows, Josh, the host, my dear friend, he had an encounter with his wife in the car. And I always joke with him because he says, I say it Dukes of Hazzard across the hood of his car while he's driving. And his wife to this day will not say.
It did a Dukes of Hazzard?
Like it jumped over the hood of his car. He said it was shaggy and it was white.
I can totally believe that.
And she's like, that wasn't a Bigfoot. And he's like, yeah, yes, it was. And it's funny thing is his wife and my wife are exactly alike. We could have the powers to summon Jesus, have asked Jesus to come down, and him holding the hand of a Sasquatch, and Jesus stops a car and says, "Hello, Stacy. Hello, Janelle. I am who you think I am. I'm Jesus.
Yeah.
And this is a creature that I created. This is a Sasquatch." They would both look at us and go, "All right, who did you pay to do this, and how much did it cost us?"
Exactly.
But so here's the thing. So your wife is a very lovely person. I enjoyed having conversation with her and you over dinner. She told me about an encounter that you brought up while driving, and I don't know which direction, but on 169.
Yes, we had another one.
Where were you guys headed?
That was years and years ago. We were headed home from Leech Lake, if you know where Leech Lake is. So we were headed home from a trip up in Leech Lake, and one of the best, quickest, most direct routes is 169 straight down. Okay. So we're driving, and it's quite late. I don't know about the time we got to the spot where we had this sighting. I'm thinking between 12 o'clock and 1 in the morning, right? So there's traffic. I think it was Sunday. And a lot of people are coming home from up north on Sunday. You know the routine.
Yep.
Leave on Friday, come home Sunday.
Exactly.
So we're driving, and in my headlights, we were in a Corvette at the time, and they're low, and the headlights are even quite low. And I had my brights on, and we see up ahead what we think is a moose standing just off the tar, like I'm talking a foot off the tar. And there's no shoulder on this road. Just, it goes tar, white line, and then dirt. And then, it's a drop off. And so we think we see a moose waving its antlers. It's like this. And the big antlers are kind of waving, but it's got its head down low or lower, not like full up. And then the antlers raise, and I'm looking at this, trying to figure out, what am I looking at? What am I looking at? It's got to be a moose. And then she's like, "Oh man, that's like way bigger than even a moose." We get out, and it's more bulky than a moose. You know how big moose are? They're huge.
Yeah.
As we get closer, we see this long hair coming off, which now is not antlers, it's arms. And it's doing like a hula dance, with its arms, back and forth, back and forth. And we realize, and we see the wind hitting it. And we realize, instantly I knew something was drying off. Some kind of animal was drying off in the breeze. It was really hot that night, I remember, but it was windy. And as eventually we could see the fingers, you could see the legs, the shoulder muscles, everything. You could see everything. And this one was really massive. Definitely over 8 feet tall. Definitely huge, biggest animal I've ever seen. Way bigger than like even a grizzly bear, anything like that. Just shocking big. And the fingers were huge, like almost 1.5 inches, 2 inches in diameter.
Really?
Each finger? Oh, yeah. And it's just waving its arms back and forth with its fingers open, its hands open, its palms open. And once again, we're just like, what the? And we drove past that. We weren't even 4 feet from it. But lit in the headlights like that with the brights on, you can imagine the details we could see.
Yeah.
Right. And this one just was monocolored, and we didn't see any it's kind of a lighter colored. And Yvette mentioned the word snuffleupagus.
Yes.
And I just, once again, you're just like, okay, why couldn't we have been told we're going to see a Bigfoot on the way home?
Right.
Prepared. So, and that's it. You're drive past it by the time you kind of get your wits about you, you're past it, you're over it. You're just like, okay.
Yeah.
But what was interesting is I did finally pull over when it was safe to, and hit my GPS to where we estimate it was, and there was a creek that came out of the state forest. And this is past the casino, about maybe 5 miles or 3 miles, but there's a creek that comes out of the forest. It's a state forest, and then empties into Mille Lacs Lake. And so it probably, these are definitely water apes. So it probably walked through the water, took a nice swim in Mille Lacs. Who knows? That's my guess. It was drying off before it went back into the forest.
Yeah. Trying to cool itself off because it was so hot. And then
it was hot that night.
Yeah, that's
hot. And so and then once again, it didn't give a crap that we were, there was cars passing it. And I'm sure I would guess at least 10, 15, 20 people saw it there.
Yeah.
So hopefully, it would be really great if somebody else reported it.
Yeah.
That would be very, very nice.
Yeah, I'm like I said, I'm definitely going to be hitting that area that's over by our place for sure.
Oh, I think it's your best chance at seeing one.
Yeah.
Because it's not that huge. Some of them have roads that go around them. You won't be able to go in them. And that includes lakes like Lamprey. What other lakes are there? There's George Watch. I'm not good with names. Cross Lake, Rondell Lake, or Crossways Lake. And then there's a bunch of ponds, it's smaller ones off like Bald Eagle.
Yep.
Some of those areas. You know where the White Bear Theater is. Did I tell you that White Bear Theater story? Oh, there's a great one there where a guy, I had him on my show. I'll try to remember the details. Don't quote me on every detail. But it was March, late winter. And the snow had melted pretty good. He was working on his mountain bike. He's a mountain biker. He was excited to go, take his bike out. So like a lot of guys do in March, they start getting their junk ready, their motorcycles, their mountain bikes. And he was doing that. And it was kind of late. It was like midnight. And he's like, I'm just going to go for a little quick ride. It was cold that night, 40s probably. So he goes for a ride on some trails he knew in that area, in Area H, right?
Yeah.
So he goes for there, and he's in there, and he rides by a pond, and he hears a big splash. And he's thinking, oh, cool, beaver, So he stops his bike, leans it up against a gate or a fence that's there, or a tree, I can't remember. And he walks over to the pond. And that's when he sees this big thing like crouched, a big black thing crouched down on the edge of the pond. And he sees it reach down underneath, like into the water, and then do this. And a big rock comes flying across the area towards him. And he said it hit the water like a depth charge. Kaboosh!
Wow.
So he's freaked out now, and he runs back to his bike. He's completely freaked out. His bike is gone.
Wait, his bike is gone?
It's now gone. So he runs back to his bike where he leaned it up, and it's gone. And now he's really scared because you can imagine he's like, okay, do I run home? Do I try to run out into the freeway? Do I just walk home? What way am I going to go? Where are these things? Because he knew there was something there, obviously, because of the 3 incidents. The first splash he heard, the big depth charge splash, and then the bike gone. So whatever it was, something took a family member, probably, took his bike. And so he's like, okay, I'm going to find my bike.
That's crazy.
He wanted, because it's a long ways from his home. And so he looks and he finds his bike 50 yards where he'd put it. It was dragged away.
Man, he must have been panicking.
So that's where you live, Daniel.
Yeah, no, I know exactly. And I know the exact lake you're talking about too.
And there's a pond there. It's north of the White Bear Theater.
Yep.
And maybe, I don't know, is it a mile or whatever, but there's a pond there. And I want to bring I want to get a diving crew to just dive in there and see if we can find that big rock. It should, and bring him there. So I have his number.
if it's the pond or the lake that I think it is,
Yeah.
there's like a little island, like a small little island that has a little bit of vegetation and tree growth on it.
Okay.
And if I'm not mistaken, yeah, I think I know where that
Well,
lake
we'll
is.
have to get together with Google and just go on like Google Maps and just try
Yeah.
to, pinpoint all these spots
Oh, for
because,
sure.
and right across is highway. You can eventually get to, what's that area? Delwood area, which has been many sightings in Delwood. If you know where Delwood is,
Yep.
and that's where like Jessica Lange lived.
Oh, I did not know
With
that.
Sam Shepard, they lived over there in Delwood. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did
It's
not
over
know
there by the apple orchards. There's sightings over there in the fall, especially
that. Oh,
around the apple orchards. I've had guys call me up and go, yeah, because they know I'm like into bear research here in Minnesota.
mhm.
And they'll go, do bears walk upright? Just wanted to ask, because I saw an upright walking bear and it walked a long ways down the railroad track. And they came out of the apple orchard and it walked across right in front of my car and then walked down the railroad track. I'm like, sir, you probably saw a Bigfoot. Oh, there's no such thing. So, well, there's no such thing as bears that walk upright
Yeah.
generally that distance. And once again, I asked him, did it have broad shoulders? Yeah, the broad shoulders were huge. Well, bears have just super sloped. They have no collarbones.
Yeah.
Or shoulder bones, and so the bears have really narrow shoulders. But I get that kind of stuff all the time.
That's so funny. So in the years you've been doing this, I mean, you've been doing this for like what 40 plus years.
Yeah, it's been a long time since the 90s or like almost the 80s.
Yeah, like early 90s. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I was reading something like 87. I think is when like you first like did some type of production work or something.
I was
like
doing. Yeah, I started producing Ron Shera's show.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
And me and Ron started that show, I don't know, 84, 85, 86. We started doing TV specials.
Yeah.
And then it eventually worked into a TV series. And by the way, that show's still on the air. That's what I love
yes,
about
it is.
It's my first show. It's still going.
And that's kind of like an institution here in Minnesota, though.
It is. Yeah.
The Ron Scherer show. And then what was the dog's name? He's had
Raven.
many of them. Yeah, Raven.
Raven 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Yep,
6. Yeah,
absolutely. So doing all of this work, it is taking you literally around the world.
Yeah.
And if you could just kind of think back just for a moment, when you're dealing with cryptids, where's the one location that you kind of got like a really uneasy feeling about being in the area? And did you hear or encounter anything while you were there?
Well, I've had, it started my first kind of weird thing when I was young. I used to have little dirt bikes. We had dirt bikes, little 125s and motocross bikes, and we'd tear all over around the railroad tracks in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
And one day, me and my girlfriend heard what sounded like a woman being murdered. And there were some wood knocks, and it's just really weird. We didn't think about Bigfoot. Then I went hunting. I was probably about 17. I went hunting with my uncle one time with my buddy. He put us on a deer stand about a quarter mile apart, everybody. And it's pitch black, when we get put on the deer stand, and the sun is not risen yet, and I get this terrible smell. The sun starts cracking. I can barely kind of make out this beautiful moss-laden area. And I have to cover my face because it's so bad. I was like rotten flesh, the stink. And then I hear chest beating. Boom, 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 boom. And of course, I was a grouse hunter. I knew there wasn't grouse. I could put it this way: I could feel the vibrations of my body. And I still didn't associate it with Bigfoot for some reason. But I knew instinctively to chamber a bullet in my rifle right then and there. So I remember, loading one in the chamber of my Winchester 30-30.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sitting up there and I'm covering my face. And all of a sudden, the chest beating ended and the smell went away. Okay, that's a weird experience. So we were supposed to meet back at this certain location for lunch, everybody's safety check, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So we all do the walk, about a mile walk, and I get back to camp and told my cousin what happened. He said, well, guess what? Well, you were walking, you were all talking about it because we had it happen to everybody. So everybody up on their deer stand had the same experience.
So so from what you're telling me and what you can gather is this thing went to each and every location
Yep.
just to let you guys know, hey, I'm out here.
Yes.
Oh my!
And you know what was so
gosh.
cool is this area that we were hunting, or have you been up to Orr, Minnesota, up on the Canadian border?
I haven't been up there, but I know where it is.
Okay, well, Orr is where we were. My uncle was like a major hunter, and I mean, he didn't mess around. He had this spot was so wildernessy. I mean, it took us probably hours to get there. I remember leaving at like 1 a.m. to get to this spot so we could be there by 4 from already being up there. It was way back in the forest.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't mess around. This area was beautiful. I mean, just like untouched wilderness. And when the sun came up and I could see it, it was like, oh, God, it was beautiful. There's like a little stream, about that wide, just kind of winding through all these rocks that are covered with moss. There was almost fairy-like, this forest area I was in. Just beautiful. So then my cousin later on even had where he saw one in that same area after he got older, because he kept hunting that area, and we did end up getting a 10-point buck out of there.
Man.
But it's just so once again, I remember my cousin Mark going, Bigfoot. It was a Bigfoot. And I didn't, once again, it's kind of blew it off. It's like,
Yeah.
That was it. Once that was over, it was back to hunting. Well, that was a little weird. Yeah. But you put it out of your mind. So then years later, I started traveling a lot with Ron. We started, going up to the Arctic a lot, we were at a lake called Knowlton Lake, which is known as the lake that's never been fished. It's where the story was written, Never Cry Wolf. If you've ever seen that movie, Never Cry Wolf.
Who starred in it?
It's a really cool movie. It's old. But it's a really well done movie about a biologist that goes up to study why the caribou populations are dropping so bad.
Mm-hmm.
So he gets dropped off in a float plane, and these are the kind of adventures I've done so many of. But so it's a great movie, and I ended up at Knowlton, where the movie was written. I didn't know that when I got up there. I found out. But and actually, my guide was the Native American that the movie was based on. That's in the movie. Knapp. I still remember his real name. His real name was Knapp. Yeah. But anyhow, so I get to hang out with him the whole trip. But we were out there, and we were by the Windy River. This is way up in Northwest Territories, right? So it's a river called the Windy River that I think it empties out of Knowlton and heads to the Arctic Ocean. And you can catch grayling and all this stuff. But we're fishing at the mouth of the Windy River, and I see a 6-foot lake trout coming after my 30-pound lake trout. I'm reeling in about a 30-pounder, which is nice. It's like a 44-inch fish.
Yep.
Right? It's no slouchy fish. Here comes this behemoth with a head your screen's kind of narrow here, but with a head, almost 2.5, 3 feet wide.
Wow.
And it's swimming like a man. I think I'm watching like a man swimming in the water. And I'm looking, because the water is gin clear up there. And I'm looking at this, and I'm like, holy crap, that's like a giant Goliath grouper type fish. And it could just swallow that 30-pounder just whole with one gulp, right?
Yeah.
So I've seen it with my own eyes. I was following my thing. And my guide that time, his name was Ron. And I go, did you see that, Ron? And he goes, oh, I see those all the time. And I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, we can't catch them, but yeah, they're just like they're uncatchable. Even if you hooked one, you'd never get it in. And then I later on met a guy. His real name was Jim, who brought me up to Point Lake, way up in Northwest Territories too. And Jim hooked into one of these things. He said dragged him and his buddy around the lake for like 7-8 hours. And I did a story for Care 11 on that. I went up there and filmed a story called The Point Lake Monster. But anyhow, so my goal was like, why are there fish that big that nobody knows about? Okay. And so I had my own theory that they get out of their niche. They're females, they don't lay eggs, and they just keep growing. And there's no bacteria in the water. Right. And so an animal can live hundreds of years. That 30-pound trout I was telling you is probably 100 to 150 years old.
It's like a pristine environment.
Yes. And so when you bring a fish like that in, and this was life-changing. The first time I brought one of these ancient lake trout in my boat, and you're very careful with them. You put them in a gurney and you lift them. You have two guys lift them out of the water, and you can measure them then and, take a photo or whatever. Then you carefully release them, and you're using a barbless hook.
Yeah.
You're not leaving any damage on these fish. And the fish's eye is like this. And it's like looking around at us. It's looking around the boat. And then it locked eyes with me. And I'm thinking, you are smart, dude. This fish is really, it's like looking at me. And it's 150 years old. And the respect that transferred between me and that fish was really, it was life-changing. And so released it, and I couldn't shake that look. I couldn't get that fish. I know it sounds weird staring at me. And but then, seeing this big giant one, I'm thinking, okay, I've got to get up there, and I got to try to get the first footage of one of these giant behemoths that no one's ever gotten footage of. So I go up there, I call a biologist up, Dick Sternberg, and we and Ron's brother, we go up to this lake. It was Selwyn Lake up in Northwest Territories. This is where Sternberg decided there was probably the biggest trout in the world up in this place, because he had seen them too, and he was bringing a tackle box. It was a cooler. Anyhow, make a long story short, we're up there. I could tell you a ton of stories from that trip. But it's rough one day. We're out there, and I still haven't gotten my footage. We've come close. And I think it was me that had to go pee. So we go to shore to pee. Everybody could take a pee break because it was so rough. We'd have been peeing all over each other.
Right.
In the boat, in this little boat. I mean, they're like 15-foot boats. Right?
Yeah.
So aluminum boats. So we go back to shore, and there is footprints coming out of the water. And this beautiful sand. It's very sandy. When you get really far up in the Arctic, it's very sandy in the summer. After all the snow melts and everything. It's like from all the glaciers is grinding up everything. They call them sand eskers. They're everywhere. You almost think you're in the Bahamas sometimes.
Really?
Yeah, it's beautiful. Crystal clear water, but you can see these footprints coming out of the water in the shallow water from another island that was there, onto the shore, up the shore, into this pea gravel, and then from the pea gravel into the moss. And so we're all like, holy crap, look at this. And we get up to the pea gravel. And I said, Rick, get on that rock. And Rick at that point was like 300 pounds. So he leaps off the rock trying to dent it. Didn't even put a dent in the soil. These other tracks were like deep. So he and I are filming, and Rick's a journalist too. And so I said, Rick, I need you to do a stand-up about these tracks. So he does a stand-up, and we show him, we film everything. And we called the story, we're going to let it air in Care 11. It was like the mystery of the North or whatever. And so we keep following him, but there's a footprint in front of a tree very few trees up there, but there was a little stand of stunted black spruce trees.
Mm-hmm.
And so we follow up, and there's a footprint in front of the tree trunk and then one behind the tree. You know what that means? It stepped over the tree.
Shut up.
And that's where Rick goes, we need to go now. We need to leave right now. And I'm like, dude, let's just keep going. Keep going. I want to see where these go. And so we went out and to where the trees ended, and it's just tundra.
Mm-hmm.
And you could see for miles those tracks in a straight line going out into the moss on the tundra, where it had been compressed down because it was we were kind of on an elevated hammock there.
Mm-hmm.
And then it went down and kind of was like a valley, but you could see those tracks going off. So I tried to we went back. I tried to get the floatplane pilot to get us up because there's no place to hide there.
Yeah.
So we get an airplane up. I got broadcast quality equipment. We can put an end to this mystery right then and there. And of course, that was life changing for me because I'm like, holy crap, I found these footprints and filmed everything. The floatplane pilot thought we were playing a practical joke on him, and he got very angry at us. And so, he threw something against the tent wall. So me and Rick kind of sheepishly left. And I regret not going back and trying to reason with them, going, this is not, because it's kind of a common thing when you go into these camps.
Yeah.
And I was probably the worst thing. I would do practical jokes on people, but they were always harm, like short cast all their rods or do stuff like hide their toilet paper, whatever. Never anything like, too malicious.
Yeah.
And once in a while, I'd try to short cast Ron's reels, and I would do somebody else's by accident.
Yeah.
Like somebody start casting all my rods and reels.
That's hilarious.
Son of a gun. Yeah, I was like in the wrong little tent. Anyhow, make a long story short, I get it why he felt that way.
Yeah.
Like this was going to be like the big laughing stock. He was going to be, and some of these Canadian outfitters, they don't have much of a sense of humor, right? They're used to battling for their life every day.
Yeah.
So.
Doug, I could sit here and talk to you. Actually, no, I can't sit here. I'd rather hang out with you and just not only just talk about Bigfoot, but talk about everything else. Because, since we had dinner that night, I've been doing so much just like looking into you as the person and your body of work. And literally, I could spend an entire week just hanging out with you and just listening to you talk as much as you wanted to talk about everything that you've done and the things that you know and things that you believe in. And you are an absolute amazing person.
Well, thank you. I just consider myself just somebody that's been old, but I've always been somebody that's never said no. And I've always been the kid that got everybody else in trouble.
Yes.
I was that guy like, hey, let's hop on a train.
You are the person my mom and my dad always said, hey, you nice kid, but if he asks you to do something, just
say no.
Say no.
I'm surprised I survived my childhood. A lot of stories there, but always good intention. I liked adventure and I just kept getting myself in trouble that way, by volunteering and doing things and just to do whatever it took to get on a trip. And, I've got myself in so many predicaments and, had, machine guns stuck into my neck at, in remote areas of Mexico, South America problems in Russia, and all sorts of,
this is
a lot of trouble, I guess. But hey, I'm here.
This is where we need to have a bonfire and just sit and have a good time.
Yeah.
So, but before we end the show, do you have anything new going on? Anything that you want to promote?
Well, one, obviously we'd love people to, check out Untold Radio Network and Untold Radio AM, my show on Wednesdays. But I'm working on Legend Meets Science 2, which I'm getting a lot of flack. Like, when's it going to be done? When's it going to be done? It's like, I don't know where to stop because I don't have a deadline.
Mhm.
And I keep getting new, really, really cool evidence.
Yeah.
Like really amazing. And of course, you're doing forensics on this stuff. And one of the things I have a new theory that just hit me the other day about porphyrins. You probably have never even heard that name.
Mm-mm.
Well, I think that we're going to very soon talk about porphyrins, but I had this kind of major thought diarrhea, call it that.
Yeah.
But everything fits so well with my theory. And so I have a forensic test I'm going to do. And if it pans out, it's going to prove Bigfoot seeing UV light.
He is seeing UV light?
No, it'll prove that Bigfoots can see in the UV light spectrum.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So here we are thinking we're hiding.
Yeah.
And he, little do we know.
Well, the UV light range allows animals to see protein content, whether it's pollen, the best pollen, or like caribou can see in UV spectrum. They can see the right lichen to eat, the ones that's the blood red one. To them, it shows up really red, and they know that's the highest protein content. Where if you don't have UV vision, it's all going to look the same.
Right.
And when I've been out with wild bears, they eat. It's so interesting. Well, I'll eat these berries. Well, I'll touch you these. They look the same to me. Or they'll eat catkins in the spring, but they're very picky on which ones they eat. They all look the same to me. I suspect they're going to find out bears see in UV vision too. They're figuring out like deer do, caribou do, and it's not easy to prove that. But I realize there could be a chemical compound in their hair. And we can talk about that in our next little get together here.
Absolutely.
But Legend Means Science 2 is all about forensics and science,
Awesome.
Yeah.
I can't wait. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna keep doing some more deep diving. It's just since we had dinner. I mean, I've watched MonsterQuest. I watched every single episode because that was like my show. And it's been a long time since I watched it, so I've been refreshing, and I love it just as much now.
Those shows hold up. Those shows are holding up well, aren't they?
Yes, they are. Because at first when we used to watch them, I was like, oh man, this is so cool. And now that I'm kind of in this community and I've heard so many stories, I've seen so many videos, and I've heard so much audio. Let me play an audio for you real quick that was given to me by my most recent guest. This was taken in an area that he liked to call he calls it the Area 51 of Oklahoma.
Alrighty.
So check this out. Actually, it's a little video, but listen for the sounds.
I heard. Ooh, that's a different sound.
Can you play it again?
Sure.
Sorry. First, ear and out the other. Second time, I start zooming in on my brain on certain sounds.
Okay, ready?
It's pretty cool.
I heard. Ooh, that's a different sound.
Play that last whoop again. Just that last whoop.
Hold on 1 second. I'll get it.
I heard. Ooh, that's a different sound.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's a whoop.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. And then
the brain can play so many tricks with sound. Pareidolia is not just for images; it can do it with sound too.
Yeah.
For instance, one of the things we look for are missing fundamentals. There's 4 fundamentals in a human voice. Bigfoots often only have 3, the top 3. They're missing the whole lower one. Even though you hear all that bass and all that, our brain makes up for it, the missing fundamental.
Right.
Isn't that crazy? It just plays something that doesn't exist. And
Doug, I could talk to you all night about this stuff.
Well, we definitely need to get that one in our library and get it analyzed. We'll get it analyzed in a spectrogram.
Okay.
Moving spectrogram, so you can watch the spectrogram live while the sound is playing, and then you can see if there's any missing fundamentals when those things do these.
Okay.
The long call for sure, I have a feeling will show a missing fundamental, which almost verifies it's certainly not a human.
Yeah.
And it won't match any other animal.
Well, I'll tell my guest from last night that I'm going to send it to you. I know he won't have a problem with it.
No, and we'll give him some really good feedback that he can use.
Awesome.
And if it's really good, David might be interested in featuring it in his book, which is actually going to have sound in the book.
Cool.
I also publish books with audio and video clips in the book.
Nice. I think
book.
A QR code.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember you talking about it. And I'm also going to send you a 15-second video to take a look at and just kind of tell me what you think about it. So
sounds good.
All right. So, hey, if you want to just hang out in the lobby just for a second while I close out the show. And
absolutely.
All right. So stand by. I'm going to bounce out here. Hey, everybody. That's our show for tonight. I cannot thank Mr. Hajicek enough for coming on the show and sharing his encounters with us, his insight on things, and just some of the stuff that he's done over his amazing career in this career field, and then also dealing with wildlife, bears, and the giant squid and things like that. I'm definitely gonna see if Doug would like to come on the show again to do just discussion about anything and everything, because he's such a fascinating person and such a great guy. If I haven't said it before, again, thank you so much, everybody, for coming on onto my channel, watching my videos, my episodes, commenting, liking, subscribing, and sharing. If you or anybody you know who's had an encounter would like to come on the show, you can reach me at the Cryptid Podcast 72 at gmail.com, the Cryptid Podcast 72 at gmail.com. Even if you have had an encounter and you don't want to be on camera, you don't want to come on the show, but you just need to get it off your chest, again, you can also send it to me as well. I'll be the gatekeeper for that story, because a lot of people have had some traumatic experiences with these things, and they just have to get it off their chest. So without anything else going on, guys, again, I want to say thank you so much. As my buddy Josh always says, stay prayed up. And as I always like to say, remember, a legend always starts with a sighting. Take care, everybody. That's the show for tonight.
I got a strange going on out here. Something just killed my dog.
Something killed your dog?